There has never been a single solid, determined commitment on the part of the vast majority of white Americans on the question of genuine equality for the black man. In 1863, the Negro was freed from the bondage of physical slavery through the Emancipation Proclamation. But he wasn't given any land to make that freedom meaningful. And you know, it was something like having a man unjustly imprisoned for 30 or 40 years, and suddenly you discover that he's innocent, that he's been unjustly jailed for 30 or 40 years. And then you simply go up to the man and say, now you are free. But you don't give him any bus fare to get to town. You don't give him any money to buy any clothes to put on his back. You don't give him any money to get on his feet so that he can rise up once more as a man. But this is what happened to the black man in America. And we must remember this, that at the very same time when America refused to give the black man anything, just said you're free, he was left penniless, illiterate, standing out in a situation not knowing what to do and where to go. But we must not forget that at the same time, the Negro was being treated like this, and America was giving away millions of acres of land in the West and the Midwest. It says that our country was willing to undergird its white peasants from Europe with an economic floor. It refused to undergird its black peasants who were brought in chained from Africa with an economic floor. And so emancipation for the Negro was freedom to hunger. It was freedom to the winds and rains of heaven. It was freedom without a roof over their heads. Freedom without bread to eat. Freedom without land to cultivate. It was freedom and famine at the same time. And it is a miracle that the Negro has survived. At the very same time that America refused to give the Negro any land, through an act of Congress, our government was giving away millions of acres of land in the West and the Midwest, which meant that it was willing to undergird its white peasants from Europe with an economic floor. But not only did they give the land, they built land-grant colleges with government money to teach them how to farm. Not only that, they provided county agents to further their expertise in farming. Not only that, they provided low interest rates in order that they could mechanize their farms. Not only that, today, many of these people are receiving millions of dollars in federal subsidies not to farm, and they are the very people telling the black man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps. Now, this is what we are faced with, and this is the reality. Now, when we come to Washington in this campaign, we are coming to get our check.
Some mayors say that we are owed around 6.2 quadrillion. But the black tax, the cost of being black in America, by Sean D. Rochester states, and he outlines in his book published in 2017, that we are owed $104 trillion on the low end, with a median $50 trillion for slavery alone. And that median is taken from some researchers who say we're owed $24 trillion and some who say we are owed $93 trillion. Plus $735 billion recurring. This number doesn't include the cost of about 50 Black Wall Streets that were decimated, nor compound interest from 2017 when the Black tax was published, nor the cost of Black lives, nor the cost of living increases, nor the war on drugs, nor the current pandemic. The number I am working with is for slavery, Jim Crow, and accrued ongoing systemic racism, oppression, and disadvantage in the country our ancestors built with their lives. If you are interested in helping me to accomplish the number and greater, please join my efforts. Join me in my advocacy. Send me an email at friendsofadostv@gmail.com. That's friendsofadostv@gmail.com. Good evening on the West Coast. Good evening in the Central. Good evening on the East Coast. You know exactly who it is, family. Angela Nirvana, your hostess with the mostest on the Reparations Perspective, Friends of ADOS TV, bringing you those ADOS hot topics and making the case for reparations, making the case for weaponizing our vote and socializing our suffering. And today, family, we're going to talk about how little your current president, I did not vote for him, but 87% of y'all voted for him, how he has weaponized George Floyd only to pivot to Asian American protections against xenophobia. No protections for those of us that have been here for over 400 years. No protections for those of us who built all the wealth these immigrants and these white folks eat from that table that we are the legs of, right? But folks want to come up in my feed and make me hotter than fish grease, talking about you haven't given him enough time. You're such a hater. Well, he had enough time to pass an executive order to give transgenders the right to participate in girls' sports. So don't come up in my feed talking about he's only had 2 weeks, give him a chance. He's had plenty of opportunities. I think he's signed about 22 executive orders, the last count. Now, how many years has it been since we've been in dire need, okay? From slavery, Jim Crow, and accrued ongoing systemic racism, oppression, and disadvantage. How long, family? How long have they weaponized immigration against us? Are we going to talk about it today? See, folks don't like me talking about immigration as it relates to the oppression of our people. But family, you can't fix what you refuse to face. And over on this channel, we keeps it 100, we keeps it trill, we keeps it a buck, like the kids say. You understand me? So we must examine what's happening to our people while this government yet again participates in weaponizing everything in the kitchen sink against American descendants of chattel slavery to make us fourth-class citizens in the country our ancestors built with their lives. Oh yes, to replace our vote because we're finally waking up, you see. So now they're quickly trying to do for all these other groups so they can not need our vote, you see. They don't want to need our vote. And they want to deny us our justice claim. So over here, I use my third eye to share with the people how you're being screwed by the very Democrats you continuously vote for without demanding reparations and a Black agenda in exchange for your vote. And I'm over here teaching you how you're being done in yet again with a trifecta. You see, I think y'all really trying to wait this out so y'all can blame the Republicans when they take this back in 2022, okay? But right now, there's no excuse not to come in that door, guns a-blazing, for the very
very people, Biden, who you said had your back and you would have ours. I didn't vote for your ass, okay? Let me keep it a buck. I didn't vote for you, but 87% of our people swore this was the right decision over weaponizing the vote to socialize this suffering. I heard in the news today how the ratings for all these lamestream media, the lamestream corporate news networks is tanking because they no longer have Trump to prop up to the country and the world as the overt racist he is. So this has worked, right? To get y'all sleepwalking to the polls, 87% strong, to wait to see if Biden will do anything for you, right? To make a racist in office for 4 years more of a boogeyman than the racists combined in office a combined 65 years with records against your people. And the beat goes on. And I'm here to talk all about it and to share the puckery with the PPP. Okay? I'm here to talk all about it and to share it with you. So I'm going to jump right in. I see all my beautiful family filing in. But let's get into the topic because I need my co-host to tell me all about it in this feed. Shout out to all you lovelies, the ones that have chatted, the ones who have yet to chat, because I know lots of folks are watching me don't want to speak up. I understand, but I'm here in love to show you the error of your ways and how you have made it harder for us in the reparationist movement. You've made it harder on us when you continue to vote blue no matter damn who. So let me make the case right now. Let's go to Biden, and I'm going to be commenting in between this one little video. I'm going to jump to a segment, and we're going to just keep going, and type your comments, and you type your questions over here, and I'll be back to greet every one of you lovelies, okay? I don't want to belabor. It's going to be maybe about a 90-minute show. I'm going to try to get it, y'all out of here in less than that. I know how y'all's attention span is, and I know I was born to talk. So with that being said, let's go over here and listen to Joe Biden's plans to cure racism that exclude the very people who are the anchor of this country. Let's get into it. Hold on. Y'all got to give me a minute. Thank you for the compliments on my background, y'all. I bought my green screen. I'm learning, y'all. I'm learning. And it feels so good to not just be over here, not know what all these buttons can do. Okay, so let me share. I tried to give y'all a background that complements my outfit. Okay, so let's talk about it. Let's go to the top. Okay, remember, y'all, at 9:07, I got to jump from this one part. Okay, 9 minutes, 7 seconds. Lord, help me remember. Okay, so I hope y'all can see that over there. Okay, I hope y'all can see and hear. I pressed the audio this time. Let me come over and check. Okay, it looks good. It looks good. Now let me jump back. All right, let's go to the top. Now I'm going to be pausing in between this to talk my comments. Okay, so let's play it.
Very clear. At the moment it arrived as a nation where we face deep racial inequities in America and systemic racism that has plagued our nation for far, far too long. I said that over the course of the past year that the blinders have been taken off the nation, the American people. What many Americans didn't see or had simply refused to see couldn't be ignored any longer. Those 8 minutes and 46 seconds that took George Floyd's life opened the eyes of millions of Americans and millions of people around all over the world. It was the knee on the neck of justice, and it wouldn't be forgotten.
Okay, let me stop right there and jump back to you because I got to share what his solution is for that with you. Okay, hold on. Let me stop this screen and get my other screen going. Okay, so remember, he opens up with how George Floyd, 8 minutes, 46 seconds to the neck, woke up the world. I mean, folks is marching through the streets, white women locking arms all around the world to be a shield between us and them. I mean, it was just theater, right? Let me show you what his answer is in response to George Floyd, 846. Stand by. Let's get over there to it. Oh, Lord. Ooh, child, these devils don't quit. Oh, okay. Hold on, I'm going to share this article real quick. We're going to chop it up. Biden still wants to increase funding for police departments by $300 million to reinvigorate community policing. He just had this speech about racial injustice, racial inequity, and he opens up with this beautiful soliloquy to George Floyd with this knee on his neck for 8 minutes, 46 seconds. He forgot to add that the race soldier snuffed out his life while he cried out for his mother and urinated himself. Okay, that's what that video was. Y'all all seen that by now. I'm not showing that, but I'm just telling you what is conveniently left out is his intention to increase funding for police departments by $300 million to reinvigorate community policing. Now, for those of you who are going to try to come for me, like, we need police. We don't need them to execute us by government sanction. You're talking about the FBI in 2006 who told you that white supremacy is overwrought within all the police stations. So instead of dismantling private prisons, I know he said he was going to do so for the Justice Department. That's only 8% of 100% of the private prisons that he's talking about doing away with. Don't get excited. It's still a nothing burger. Okay? So you don't want to totally dismantle private prisons. You don't want to free the nonviolent offenders, You don't want to free them, the ones that you're currently making a profit off the weed that they've been arrested for. You don't want to free them from the prisons and give them a weed shop in the neighborhood, the ones owned by white folks. No, we're not going to do that. We're not going to put more money into the black schools, the black public schools that our tax dollars pay for. No, because that disrupts your preschool to prison pipeline, right? You don't want to dismantle qualified immunity so that we aren't shot in our beds, we aren't shot while jogging, we aren't shot picking up our kids. No, none of that. You, author of the 94 crime bill, Jim Crow Sloppy Joe, want to infuse $300 million more into our communities. That's what you intend to do. The racist that you are. You see, this is how the country is lulled back to sleep. They want to just put a blanket over this and call it all lives matter, when we know the only lives in this country that have never mattered are black lives. And don't tell me it only matters in as much as ceasing with the government sanctioned executions. Economic inclusion is the only way black life will ever matter in this country. They stole it all and have been giving it away and giving it away and giving it away. And they intend to do more of that. So while we're on the subject of the giveaways, let's just talk about these Asians, right? No, let me finish this. I'm going to jump to, oh God. Okay, let me finish this out. Let me finish the video. I just want to, every so often I'm going to stop and infuse some other talking points, okay? So I will get to how much more significantly greater these Asian Americans whom he gave protection for around the 9-minute mark in this video. I'm going to make my case for why they don't need it and how desperately we do. We are at George Floyd 846 in every facet of our existence in this country. So let me stop this and go back to the video so we can finish that out, and I'll infuse my comments as usual. Let me stop it. Go back to the video. Let me share. with audio. So much to share, family. Oh my God. I'm gonna get to all of it though.
It stirred the conscience and tens of millions of Americans. And in my view, it marked a turning point in this country's attitude toward racial justice. When the six-year-old daughter, Gianna, who I met with when I met with the family, I leaned down to say hi to her, and she said, looked at me, and she said, "Daddy changed the world." That's what Gianna said, his daughter. Daddy changed the world. And I believe she was right. Not because this kind of injustice stopped, it clearly hasn't, but because the ground has shifted, because it's changed minds and mindsets, because it laid the groundwork for progress. COVID-19 has further ripped a path of destruction through every community in America, but no one has been spared. But the devastation in communities of color has been nothing short of stunning. Just look at the numbers. 40% of frontline workers, nurses, first responders, grocery store workers, are Americans of color, and many are still living on the edge. 1 in 10 Black Americans is out of work today. 1 in 11 Latino Americans is out of work today.
Let me stop this. We build all the wealth in the country, and we are in a neck-and-neck race with Hispanics for the bottom. How does any of that work? We've been over here over 400 years as chattel slaves, building all the wealth they eat from, and we are in a race for the bottom. And AOC wants reparations for COVID relief for her people. They like to throw in Black and brown. They like to throw in minorities and people of color. This is the way they are slowly but surely putting a stranglehold on the very people who built all the wealth they benefit from. This is the way they do it. They cloak it in these terms. And then all of a sudden, they got policies to benefit everybody but us. And it lulls us to sleep and makes us believe we're winning, because we don't know how to push everybody off the tent to be concerned about the house that's burning for American descendants of chattel slavery. We are in last place in this country, okay? And I'm going to play you a little bit of Dr. Claude Anderson to show you what I mean by immigration being weaponized against us, from a speech he did many moons ago. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. talked about this being an issue. And it is upon us, and we continue to do the same thing, voting in these Democrats while expecting different results. It is uncomfortable what you guys continue to do, not my conscious woke people who did not participate in this nonsense. But what you're continuing to do is to put a stranglehold on your children and your grandchildren when you continue to vote for this. Let's continue.
1 in 7 households in America, about 1 in 4 Black, 1 in 5 Latino households in America, report that they don't have enough food to eat in the United States.
Before the COVID, this was the case. And I'm going to show you in the Color of Wealth LA report from back in 2014. I need something more current to really show the truth of what's going on. But all of what he's talking about was our issue collectively. I'm not talking about the unicorns. I'm not talking about those of us that are an exception. I'm talking about our people by and large are being pushed down to the 4th class, and we're going to continue to make that case. So all of these issues he's bringing up has been happening to American descendants of chattel slavery from the beginning of time, when Andrew Johnson took back the 40 acres and a mule. That's why I played that opening from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He said it's like letting somebody out of jail, which is what they do. They let them out of jail. They ruin their ability to get work. They ruin their ability to vote. That's why many of them are repeat offenders. Nothing different, nothing new under the sun. That's what they did when they took away the 40 acres and a mule. Let's keep going.
United States of America. Black and Latino Americans are dying of COVID-19 at rates nearly 3 times that of white Americans.
Yes, and President Trump gave the Indians $3.3 billion. Myself and DMV and Adocs DMV and Adocs Twin City, Triangle Adocs, and Concerned Black American Citizens had a COVID relief letter that our leaders, even the Black ones, wouldn't even take into consideration for us to get around 6,000 per month, since we're dying disproportionate from the COVID. And why is that? We don't have health care by and large, can't afford it. And why is that? Because many of us don't have jobs. Even before the pandemic, our Black men were unemployed at like 50%. Okay? The ones that could work, the 18 through like the 40s, 35, that bracket was about 50% unemployed. So that you can't afford health care, not even Obamacare. I told you guys prior to recent events, that was charging me over $600 a month. And then I had like a $7,000, $8,000 copay if I had to be hospitalized. So when I did the math, it was going to cost me about $14,000 a year to carry Obamacare. Now, how do you do that if you have no job? And how do you do that if your job, if your wages are suppressed by the weaponization of immigration against you? How do you afford $14,000 a year in your budget and you can't even afford to feed your kids? You can't even afford to keep a roof over your head. How does that work? Moving on.
It's not white Americans' fault, but just the
fact. It is not white America's fault. And yet when he's doing for the Asian Americans in that bill, he's talking about it's the government's fault. But when it comes to our oppression in this country by the government's hand, this Mickey Ficky sits up here and says it is not white America's fault. What part of slavery, Jim Crow, redlining, convict leasing, the war on drugs, the current pandemic is not white America's fault when it comes to the American descendant of chattel slavery? Being redlined into environmentally racist communities and tenement housing. Execution by government sanction. Lack of jobs paying an American wage. What part of that is not white folks' fault directly? Who's running the government? White folks. That's whose fault all of it is. Whose fault was it the 40 acres and the mule was taken away? Whose fault is it that white folks were able to rob Freedmen's Bureau Bank? Huh? Share with me. But he wants to sit up here and lie. This is the kind of covert racism that is going to be to our peril if we don't weaponize the vote and socialize the suffering. These lies, this racist is continuing to tell. Just because y'all voted for him doesn't make him no longer a racist. Let's keep going.
The Americans now know it, especially younger Americans. One of the reasons I'm so optimistic about this nation is that today's generation of young Americans is the most progressive, thoughtful, inclusive generation that America has ever seen. And they are pulling us toward justice in so many ways.
How are they pulling us towards justice? And there's nothing in his first 2 weeks to remedy American descendants of chattel slavery. Let's jump to 9 minutes because I got a lot of text to cover tonight. Let me get.
To ensure they receive help from the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, to fight this pandemic. Today, I'm directing.
Did Louisiana, did they receive the help they needed during the hurricanes? Did FEMA help them or cripple them? Which was it?
Federal agencies to combat resurgence of xenophobia, particularly against Asian Americans and Pacific.
Did you hear it? He wants to enlist them in executive order to protect the Asian Americans against xenophobia. while infusing $300 million more into the race soldiers in our communities.
Pacific Islanders that we've seen skyrocket during this pandemic. This is unacceptable, and it's un-American. I've asked the Department of Justice to strengthen this partnership with the Asian American and Pacific Islander community to prevent those hate crimes. I've also asked the Department.
Okay, so let's get into it. Let me stop this. That's what I wanted you guys to hear. You start with George Floyd, 8 minutes, 46 seconds to the neck. And you end with protections for the Asian Americans. Let's talk about them. Let's talk about them. Let's get into some of this data. Stand by. I'm going to share my screen so y'all can see. Let me see, is it in the application window? Hold on, guys, I'm coming. Where is, I'm looking for the Color of Wealth LA. That's what I'm looking for. It's a PDF, you can download it. I'm only using LA because it really shows you the data when it comes to the Hispanics and the Asians and Kamala's people, the Asian Indians down here. That's what I want to share, and I'm not really seeing it right now. Just stand by, family. Give me a second. No, that's not it. Hold on. Let's go to the Chrome tab. Oh, Lord. Report. Okay, let's share. Let's see if that's it. Yes. I think y'all can see that. Let me come back over and check. Yes. Okay. Lord, let me get back to it. There. I got to go through these numbers with y'all. Now, like I said, these numbers are from the Color of Wealth in Los Angeles. You can download this yourself. It's free. Federal Reserve Bank of San Francisco put these numbers out. It had some heavy hitters in here that helped with this. I think even Dr. William Sandy Darity, our lead economist, helped with this. Let's see here. We've got Melanie De La Cruz, Viesca, Xing Chen, Paul M. Ong, Derek Hamilton, and Dr. William Darity. Okay, so this is what they help with. So I want to show you the group he's given protection to. Or I'm going to just jump to the charts, y'all. Just give me a second. I'm jumping to the charts. I ain't got time to read all this. It's like about 60 pages, as you can see. Y'all can read this for yourselves. Okay, there's only a couple tables I want to show y'all. Population change from 2000 to 2014, California and Los Angeles, MSA. Asian Indian, Kamala's people, 117%. Okay, that's in California. And then LA, 60%. Chinese, 44%. In California at large, they increased. Okay, what's that say? From 2000 to 2014, this is the population change. Okay, LA, 38%. Vietnamese, 42-38. Filipino, 40-37. Asian, 46-34. Korean, 38-32. Mexican, 48-25. Latino, 37-17. White, 18-13. Total population, okay, 15-7. Look at the negative numbers. We didn't grow. We dropped by 10%. We have gone from 16% to 2021 around 5% here in California. Let that sink in. This is what I'm telling you about the weaponization of these immigrants against us. Now let's get into some of the money, some of the other facts. So as you see here, we were at 6%. Asians were at 15-14, white 30-38. This is, I'm sorry, the percentage of total population by race and ethnicity in 2014, California and Los Angeles. Look, the Latinos, 45%, 39% in Los Angeles, 45% in Cali. Mexicans, 32% to 35%. Whites, 38% to 30%. Asians, 2014, 14, and 15 at large. Black, us, here we are. Let's move on down the road. You can do this with Boston. You can do this with Miami. They got color wealths. They're outdated, though. Let's talk about the LA Metro Statistical Area Sample Characteristics, okay? So when you're looking at bachelor's degrees, understand that white folks got 56.9% to our 44%, to African Black 58.9%. But I'm going to show you in a second how being 44% of the degree down here has nothing to do with how we are hired in the private and public sectors. We'll get to it. 58.9%. Mexicans are far behind us. This is 2014, 2000 to 2014. Chinese, 68.4 to our 44%. Japanese, 68.6. Korean, 57.1. Vietnamese, 36.5. Filipino, 76.7. And Asian Indian, Kamala's people. What are they at? 79.2. So you look at the married here. Almost 50% white folks married. Only 28% of U.S. Black are married compared to what? 59% of African Black. We're the lowest in terms of marriage. Can afford to get married. And you're about to find out. Let's look at our median family income. So we're 44% of the degree, right? Look at our median income. $53,500. 44% of the degree down here. And this is our salary amongst some of the lowest. White folks, $95,000. African Black, $115,000 to our 53.5. They've got 19% more degrees than us. Let's see, is that right? No, about 16% more degrees than us. Close to 60%, 59% of them are married to our 28. And here they go. Their median income is $115,000 to U.S. Black 53.5. But white folks ain't got nothing to do with this, right? It ain't white folks' fault. Jim Crow, sloppy Joe, right? Mexicans. Why are Mexicans damn near the median income of us, and they are 17.8% of the degree? We 44% degree. The Mexicans are 17.8% degree. And yet their median income is $3,500 shy of American descendants of chattel slavery. I keep telling y'all, this immigration is killing us. Other Latino, okay, 40K, but they got 45.7% of the degrees. I don't know why they're only at 40K. Don't care. Chinese, 70,000. Japanese, 75,000. Korean, 60,000. Vietnamese, 50,000. Filipino, 80,000. And Asian Indian, Kamala's people, 100,000. Where's the Chucks and Pearls? Where's the ski? Where y'all at? While you vote these crooks, these racists into office, 87% thought that this was a greater idea, a greater plan to replace the racists in office for 4 years with covert racists in office with a combined 65-year record against the American descendant of chattel slavery, and 87% of us went out and voted this in because Trump said some harsh words. This is 2014. We ain't even dealing with the numbers post the pandemic. Folks want to sit here and tell me we're going to be wealthless by 2053. I beg to differ. We are wealthless right now. Working with suppressed wages or no wages at all. And yet 44% of the degree down here. And y'all want to do this kumbaya, not me. Y'all want me to shut up about immigration. Of course you do. Here's the percent foreign born by ethnicity. Asian, Indian, Kamala's people. 97% of them here in California foreign born. Mexican 64. Chinese 70. Filipino 88. Japanese 30. Korean 91. Vietnamese. But Kamala gets to be within a stone's throw of the presidency, and they just got here a generation ago. We've been here forever. We built it, and they weaponized immigration against us to kill us and extinct us. That's what's happening right before your eyes, and you continue to vote for this. Moving on down the road. Let's get it. Let's go. These are liquid assets. Let's just look at that column. White folks own 91.6% of white folks have liquid assets. U.S. black 62.3 to African black 87. Chinese 90. Japanese 93.3. Korean 88.8. Vietnamese 70.2. Filipino 85.6. Asian, Indian, Kamala's people 95. More than white folks. Stocks and IRAs. 40.7% of white folks got stocks. 63.6% of them have IRAs. U.S. black, 21.5% have stock. 37.9% have IRA. African black are trailing behind us in that category, but look at their IRAs, 48.5%. I guess you can have that when you're earning $115,000 median income to our 53.5. 48.8 stocks for the Chinese as compared to 48.3 in their IRAs. 60.8 the Japanese as compared to 62.3. Koreans 23.6. Let's jump down. Filipino 41.9. 55.6 of them have IRAs. 41.9 of them have stocks. Kamala's people 58.6 have stocks. 38.6 have IRAs. Let me remind you, 21.5 have stocks of us, U.S. black. 37.9 have IRAs. We build all the wealth. And this is where we are. I'm jumping down so I can keep the show moving to just trying to deal with the more pivotal tables that I want to share with you tonight. What is this? I'm not dealing with the debt stuff. I'm dealing with, let's get to it. This is the value of assets held by white and non-white households. So liquid assets, white folks are $110,000 liquid to U.S. Black, $200 liquid. Let that sink in. African Black, 60,000 liquid. Chinese, 130,000 liquid. Japanese, $140,000 liquid. Filipino, 80,000 liquid. Look at Kamala's people, Asian Indian, $245,000 liquid. And Biden Harris want more H-1B visas to bring more East Indian Brahmin caste to this country for tech jobs that our children with degrees can't even get hired for because they don't have the complexion for the protection. Let's look at the total assets. That was liquid. Total assets, white folks, 355,000 to U.S. Black, 30,000. African Black, 152,000. Institutional systemic racism is all up in cheer, but it ain't white folks' fault. Right, Biden? Right, Jim Crow, Sloppy Joe? It's not y'all's fault. 44% degree, this is what it's looking like down here. And I'm only dealing with here because, like I said, this has the biggest concentration of these immigrants down here. Okay? And I need to just deal with one because it'll be a 5-hour show if I do everybody. I might do the other ones when I'm dealing with that group. I'm talking about the Asian Pacific Islanders that Joe Biden decided to pivot to when it came to racial equity. After weaponizing George Floyd and his daughter saying, he's changed the world, while infusing $300 million more into the race soldiers in what community? Will they be in the white communities at 110,000? Or will they be in the U.S. Black communities at 2,200? Or will they be in the African Black at $60,000 liquid? Or will they be in the Chinese, 130,000 liquid? Or will they be in the Japanese communities, 140,000 liquid? Or will they be in the Filipino communities, $80,000 liquid? Or will they be in the Asian Indian communities at 245,000 liquid? For those of you who want to have a pissing match over the fact that some African immigrants lose their lives to police brutality, which one do you think is more prone to be executed by government sanction? Which neighborhood are they in? Let's look at the total assets. White folks, 355,000 to U.S. Black, 30,000 to African Black, 152,000 to Chinese, 408,500 to Japanese, 595,000 to Filipinos, 243,000 to Asian Indian Kamala's people, 460,000. But this ain't white folks doing, right? We just not pulling ourselves up by our bootless straps, even though 44% of us are degreed. We're not pulling ourselves up by our bootless straps. We're lazy, no good, no count, right? Y'all keep voting for these Democrats. You won't do as I have advised, which I'm going to close the show out with that. Let's look at the occupations. Self-employed, 5.9% of the whites are self-employed to 6.6% of U.S. Black to 6.1% African Black. We don't have a choice, you see. We've been locked out. Affirmative action benefits white women, immigrants, and LGBTQIA. That's who I've been seeing executive orders rolling trippingly off the tongue for. When we've only got 2 years with a trifecta that you guys, 87% of you, delivered. He don't come in day one to fix this and to close the egregious economic racial wealth gap. And folks want to look at me in the reparationist movement sideways for demanding reparations in the trillions over multi-generations. Your people have no wealth. I don't care if you still have an income. Good for you. I'm not about your individual success. I'm about collective upliftment over here. Okay, so we look at the self-employed. Now let's jump to the public sector. 7%. This is back in 2014. These numbers are not true today. 7% were in the public sector of white folks, but 14.3% of them are in the private sector. 11.2% of us were in the public sector. 6.6% in the private sector. 44% of us are degreed. No social capital at the table. Built all the wealth these Mickey Fickies eat from. We are the legs of that table. 53.5 is our median income. 44% degree, only 6.6% in the private sector. But it ain't white folks' fault, right? Jim Crow, Sloppy Joe, it ain't white folks' fault. You control the purse string, you control immigration, you control it all. And you decide to anchor us to the bottom of this country. And you're trying to extinct us by not doing anything significant. And folks think it's supposed to take you an entire, 4 years before you do something? Or 2 years before the Republicans come back and take the Congress and y'all get to blame it on them. When Kamala told you from the door, she ain't doing nothing specific for your group, our group, right? And Jim Crow Sloppy Joe said nothing would fundamentally change. Latinos, 13.8% of them are self-employed, 5.3% in the public sector, 18.1% in the private sector. Now you got to know Spanish down here just to get an interview, right? And when you show up speaking it as fluent as Fidel I don't know who speaks Spanish, one of the leaders, as fluently as any Mexican or Latino, you don't have the complexion for the protection, so they'll still deny and rob you of an opportunity for employment down here. Mexicans are 10.6% of the private sector. You see that? They're what? 17% degree to our 44%. 10.6% of them are in the private sector to our 6.6%. African Black, 7.9% in the private sector. Other Latinos, 18.1% to our 6.6%. Chinese, 16.3% in the private sector. Japanese, 27.1% in the private sector. Korean, 18.9%. Vietnamese, 35.4%. Filipino, 22.7%. Asian, Indian, Kamala's people dominate. Them and the Vietnamese, 35% of them are in the private sector. And do you think someone who comes from East Indian Brahmin caste, which is white in India, is going to hire American descendants of chattel slavery, which are Dalits in India, as they are in this country? You think Asians are going to hire you? Do you think Latinos are going to, and Mexicans are going to hire you? While you run and give your vote without demanding this stuff up front? Oh, I'm going to be leaning in the whole 4 years. Y'all might as well get comfortable and get your libations. I'm going hard in the paint to try and turn this around come the next election cycle. Okay, I think that's all I got to show you on that up front. Let me close that out. So I want to show you a couple more things relative to how these Asian Americans don't need the assistance that Biden is so willingly to give to them while ignoring us his first couple of weeks in office and 22 executive orders later. Washington voters narrowly rejecting affirmative action in Referendum 88. This is how we were able to go to school. Well, let's see what happened since these Asians that dominate out here have now impeded and interfered in Prop 16. Okay. Okay, this is not the article that my highlight is on. Hold on, I'm gonna close this out and share the other one. Here we go. This is the one. Hold on, let me share this one. So, them defeating Prop 16, this is what the colleges are looking like out here now. Fighting for the Asian American vote was a key part of the campaign against Prop 16. While there were prominent Asian American backers of the measure, Zio noted that many Asian Americans feel that affirmative action in effect legalizes discrimination against them. At Berkeley this year, 42% of the freshmen are Asian, 21% are Latinx, 17% are white, and 4% are Black. This is Ward Connerly's Prop 209 that took affirmative action away from American descendants of chattel slavery, which he is one. And we ran Prop 16 recently, and it was defeated by the likes of these people that Biden weaponized George Floyd to turn around and give executive orders for this very group that's beating the brakes off of us financially and the whole 9 yards. And we're going to talk about it in a second, how they got there. This is from an article called Why Did Prop 16 Fail from November 9, 2020 by Scott Jashik. So you can read the whole article when you get time. Close that out. Let's go to why the Asian Americans. Everybody thinks it's education. Let's read. The real secret to Asian American success here. Let's talk about it. The real secret to Asian American success was not education. Let's jump down. In a 2014 edit, I'm just jumping through here so I can come and read your comments. In a 2014 editorial, before I pray us out, in a 2014 editorial, conservative commentator Bill O'Reilly pointed out that Asian household incomes were 20% higher than white household incomes on average. So, do we have Asian privilege in America? He asked. Of course not, he said. The real reason that Asians are succeeding far more than African Americans and even more than white Americans is that their families are intact and education is paramount, he said. So, who disenfranchised our families from the time they drug us over here in chains? Who sold us like the chattel we were? Away from our husbands, away from our children. Jim Crow, Sloppy Joe, but it's not white folks' fault, right? Who gave us the war on drugs? Who used our men in all the wars and denied them the GI bills and the like, the educational bills that they were due? Home ownership after serving in every war in this country. Who? Who brought us the war on drugs to justify the 3 strikes for the private prison industrial complex to re-enslave Black men, 1 million in this country, more than all the women jailed throughout the world? I read somewhere it's 2 million. Black women and children. Preschool to prison pipeline. But you, Bill O'Reilly, want to sit up here with your lying ass and say the real reason that Asians are succeeding is because they're intact and education is paramount. Let's keep going. This claim has been with us since at least the 60s, when it served as a popular rejoinder to the challenges issued by the civil rights movement. Yeah, this is how they like to make you think you no good, no count, lazy, and tricking around and can't be loyal to your wives and your children. This is the lie that they continue to purport throughout the world. The mainstream media, Bill O'Reilly. Many newspapers printed flattering portraits of Asian Americans to cast skepticism on the people marching for economic and social justice. At a time when it is being proposed that hundreds of billions be spent to uplift the Negroes and other minorities, why other minorities? We're on the bottom. And y'all still talking this nonsense, Washington Post. All of the wealth was stolen from us. The seed was chattel slavery, followed by Jim Crow and institutional systemic racism. The nation's 300,000 Chinese Americans are moving ahead on their own, claimed the 66 story in the U.S. News and World Report, which noted their strict discipline and traditional virtues. Did we have that when affirmative action was solely ours? Did we have good paying jobs that afforded us education and homes before they took our affirmative action and made it beneficial to white women, immigrants, and LGBTQIA? I remember growing up like this. I don't remember growing up in a war zone like Chirac. This is what happens when you rob a people of its resources. Black on black crime and murder, as they scratch their heads as Rahm Emanuel closes 30 black schools on the south side of Chicago. And we have hardly any black teachers anywhere in the country. But you want to talk about their strict discipline and traditional virtues. To the extent that all myths are rooted in truth, lies, this model minority stereotype recognizes a real pattern of Asian upward mobility. A century ago, Asian Americans were known as laborers of the lowest wage. They were ditch diggers, launderers, miners, yet over the decades, despite poverty, racial violence, and widespread discrimination, many Asians managed to clamber up this socioeconomic ladder. Until now, the story of how that happened has been poorly understood. The widespread assumption is that Asian Americans came to the United States very disadvantaged, and they wound up advantaged through extraordinary investments in their children's education, says Brown University economist Nathaniel Hilger. But that's not what really happened, he says. Hilger recently used old census records to trace the fortunes of whites, blacks, and Asians who were born in California during the early to mid 20th century. He found that educational gains had little to do with how Asian Americans managed to close the wage gap with whites by the 70s. Instead, his research suggests that society simply became less racist towards Asians. Did you hear that? When the boot of oppression and institutional systemic racism is on your neck, how can you thrive? How can you overcome? His research suggests that society simply became less racist towards Asians. While we're at George Floyd 846, Jim Crow Sloppy Joe want to do more for this group than the group whose ancestors built this country and all the wealth in it with their lives. Asian Americans have been a part of the U.S. for most of its history. The first major wave of immigrants came in the 1800s. We've been here since before 1619. When Chinese laborers flocked to California to help build railroads, their presence soon stirred up resentments among white Americans, as did our migration from the South to the Northeast and the West. But what has been done for us? The Chinese massacre of 1871, which took place in the streets of Los Angeles, counts among the largest lynchings in U.S. history. If they didn't lose more than we lost, it ain't. That's another lie. How could that be? How could that be the largest? We still getting lynched. How can that be the largest in U.S. history? In 1882, Congress passed the Chinese Exclusion Act, which shut the door on the influx of low-skilled Chinese labor. By 1924, nearly all immigration from Asian nations was banned. Despite widespread discrimination, many families remained, settling mostly in California. Opinion surveys from that era show that whites expressed extreme prejudice against both Asian and African Americans. You see how they like to lump this stuff together and flatten it to not deal with the oppression? The white institutional systemic racism and oppression of us, Adocs. Asians also lived in segregated neighborhoods and often sent their children to segregated schools. To survive, many opened their own businesses because no one would employ them. What are we going to open up our businesses with now that they robbed us of all of our wealth? You can't even get a job to save up to open a business for yourself. Most of the Black-owned businesses in this country are self-employed because you can't get hired. Because there's no more affirmative action to protect you. You get the crumbs. Hilger's research focuses on native-born whites, blacks, and Asians to rule out the effects of subsequent immigration. In 1965, changing laws ushered in a surge of high-skilled, high-earning Asian workers who now account for most of the Asians living in the United States today. This is what I'm talking about. Everybody want to convince me that they're letting in the poor, the helpless. No, they're not. They're locking them up at the border and pushing them back. The color of white in this country is green. These are white folks that they force us to compete with. In 1965, changing laws ushered in a surge of high-skilled, high-earning Asian workers who now account for most of the Asians living in the United States today. As are the African immigrants, as are the Caribbeans. They turning poor Haitians back. They're turning poor Mexicans back. Poor Caribbean people back. They're only allowing the money to come in here to further oppress us and to deceive us back to sleep under this covert racism, weaponizing immigration against us and allowing them to even outdo some of them in many instances. You see, in order to keep immigration as a buffer to our oppression, they are literally trying to make us eat the cost of slavery. And we keep voting for this. But even before the arrival of those highly educated immigrants, the Asians already living in the U.S. had more or less closed a wage gap with whites. At the time of the 1940 census, Hilger found California-born Asian men earn less than California black men. By the 70 census, they were earning about the same as white men. And by the 80 census, the native-born Asian men were out-earning white men. Throughout this time, many Asian American families did invest increasingly in their children's education. But Hilger discovered that the improvements in educational attainment were too modest to explain how Asians' earnings grew so fast. The picture became much clearer when he compared people with similar levels of education. Watch me now. Hilger found that in the 1940s, Asian men were paid less than white men with the same amount of schooling. But by the 1980s, that gap had almost mostly disappeared. Asians used to be paid like blacks, Hilger said, but between 1940 and 1970, they started to get paid like whites. The charts below shows average earnings from native-born black, white, and Asian, depending on how much education they had. In 1980, for instance, even Asian high school dropouts were earning about as much as white high school dropouts and vastly more than black high school dropouts. Me speaking, these same dropouts are more gainfully employed than our degreed American descendant of chattel slavery. This dramatic shift had nothing to do with Asians accruing more education. Instead, Hilger points to the slow dismantling of discriminatory institutions after World War II and the softening of racist prejudice. These are the ones that Biden now wants to protect because their feelings got hurt, that Trump told the truth, that the origins of the pandemic was in a lab in China. He uses George Floyd and then wants to pivot to give executive orders to protect Asian Americans from xenophobia, while infusing $300 million more to the race soldiers in our communities to continue to execute us by government sanction, without dismantling private prisons, without dismantling the preschool to prison pipeline, without dismantling qualified immunity, and without reparations to close the over $100 trillion egregious racial wealth gap. That's the explanation advanced by economists Harriet Orcutt Dooley and Seth Sanders, who found that in the second half of the 20th century, Asian Americans not only started to work in more lucrative industries, but also started to get paid more for the same kind of work. In other words, the remarkable upward mobility of California-born Asians wasn't about superior schooling, not yet anyway. It was a result of Asians finally receiving better opportunities, finally earning equal pay for equal skills and equal work. Has that happened yet for the American descendant of chattel slavery? Why couldn't African Americans close the wage gap? This Mickey Thicky gonna say is hard to say. Washington Post, y'all. The lamestream corporate with 3 Ks media outlets. Hilger found some evidence that there were underlying differences in skill. Between Asians and African Americans with the same amount of schooling, African Americans tended to achieve lower scores on military enlistment tests during the 40s. What's that got to do with it? You see how they deflect and want to make it about everything under the sun outside of institutional systemic racism? But it's also likely that post-war racial attitudes shifted differently for Asians than for African Americans. You think? In the 1850s, newspapers in California complained that Chinese immigrants were the dregs of the laboring class, having most of the vices and few of the virtues of the African. Yet by the 60s, attitudes had completely flipped. Journalists praised Asians for being hard workers who cherished education, kept their heads down, and rarely complained. So that was their license to come up over top of us, as is the Black immigrant. They weaponize their names and their accents to get considerations over you. So this is what happens, right? They weaponize our freedom against white folks post-emancipation when we migrated to the north, east, and west from the south. They used us to oppress theirs. And now they're using immigration to further oppress us. You see the pattern here? Still being taught in Chinatown is the old idea that people should depend on their own efforts, not a welfare check in order to reach America's promised land, the 1966 U.S. News and World Report article said. You give them opportunity and you come for us because you made us rely on welfare because you wouldn't hire us? When mostly white folks benefit from welfare? When most of the corporations are the biggest welfare kings and queens? Look at the trillions they lined their pockets with during the pandemic. Obama created 1 million white millionaires during his tenure. Over 53% of us lost our entire wealth, our homes. This pandemic is going to wipe us completely off the monopoly board if we don't weaponize that vote and socialize this suffering. Since then, waves of high-skill immigration have further cemented the stereotype of Asians as a studious, well-off demographic. Highly educated parents encourage their children to become highly educated, compounding the advantage. About half of Asian Americans over the age of 25 now hold college degrees, compared with only 28% of Americans overall, and about 18% of American descendants of chattel slavery. Hilger's research found that 50 years ago, Asians were held back primarily by lack of opportunities. Now that discrimination against Asians has lessened somewhat, the Asian edge in education is apparent. Average incomes among Asian Americans are higher because Asian Americans have higher rates of college attainment. To be clear, we are talking about averages only. As a group, damn all that, I'm not even reading those lies. But if we take a page from Hilger and focus on people with similar educational backgrounds, the residual disadvantages become clear. Asians actually earn 5% less compared with whites who also have advanced degrees, while blacks and Hispanics earn 20% less. Once again, why are we constantly in competition with Hispanics when our ancestors' blood and bones built all the wealth all these groups eat from? And we're the anchor of the country. While y'all keep encouraging us to vote blue no matter damn who. Okay, here we go. Average annual earnings for men aged 25 to 54 who have a professional degree or a doctorate. Look at whites, 140, Asian 132K, black 111, Hispanic right behind us. A $30,000 difference. If we can get those jobs, which we rarely can. This is one of several problems with the model minority myth. Here's another. Many people hold up Asian Americans as proof that hard work and education lead to success no matter your skin color. On the contrary, these stats show that being a minority in the United States often means working harder to earn less. Hello, American descendants of chattel slavery. More education will help close racial wage gaps somewhat, but it will not resolve problems of denied opportunity. As our affirmative action benefits who? White women, immigrants, and LGBTQIA. Those are all the executive orders that Biden has come into office to sign. In his first 14 days, along with the transgenders being able to compete with our girls in all manner of sports. He had time for that, while Adocs are up in my feed calling me a hater and saying I'm not giving him enough time. And we are at George Floyd 846. In fact, recent studies suggest that the income disparities are growing at the very top between blacks and whites. According to an Economic Policy Institute report from September, the difference between what a white college graduate earns and what a black college graduate earns has widened since the 80s. If we can get the job. We have no social capital. I already shared with y'all how Wells Fargo Bank got rid of all of the Adocs managers, got rid of the Adocs employees, myself included, brought in a bunch of immigrants to defraud the customers for their shareholders' bottom line, and then gave John Stump a $148 million golden parachute. Just look it up. Dirty money, Netflix, Wells Fargo. Emphasizing the power of educational attainment also obscures the barriers that remain. Despite the complaints of Stephen K. Bannon, President-elect Donald Trump's alt-right advisor, who's a darling of white supremacy groups, it is simply false that 2/3 or 3/4 of the CEOs in Silicon Valley are from South Asia or from Asia. Even among tech companies, which hire a disproportionate number of Asian workers, Asians are vastly underrepresented in upper management. And where do you think we are? Where do you think we are? If they're underrepresented, we ain't represented at all. Okay, I'm tired of this article. You get the idea. Let me play something for you while I take a breath. Welcome, one and all. Welcome, welcome. Woo, Lord, today. Lord, today.
The next 10 to 12 years, approximately 8 to 6 million Hispanics coming into the United States and 41 million Asians. You have been the majority minority for 400 years in this country. You have been the number 2 population for 400 years. You're going to get kicked out of being number 2. You're going to go down and become number 4. Now, common sense, even a 3rd grade education would tell you, if you didn't get anything when you were number 2, you all jumped ahead of me, but anyway, you can guess what you're going to get when you become number 4.
Vice President Biden, do you support reparations?
Look, I mean, since I haven't spoken on this, got a chance. Number one, the reason we're the country we are is because of immigration. We've been able to cherry pick the best from every single continent. The people who come here have determination, resilience. They are ready to stand up and work like the devil. We have 24 out of 100 children in our school today is Hispanic. The idea that we are going to walk away and not provide every opportunity for them is that not only stupid and immoral, but it's bad for America. They are the future of America, and we should invest in them. Everybody will benefit from it, every single American, and you should get used to it. This is a nation of immigrants. That's who we are. That's why we're who we are. That's what makes us different, and we should invest in it.
Thank you.
You hear the lies. American descendants of chattel slavery build all the wealth, and these devils, these demo rats, demon rats, whatever you want to call them, sit up here and lie. This was on the debate stage. And y'all, 87% went out and voted for this. Immigrants did not build this. We did not volunteer to come over here. Over 400 years ago, we were dragged here in chains to be the seed of all the wealth they benefit from to this day. The lies. Let me see what else I want to share before I come to your comments. That's about it right now, family. I'm going to take a breath and come on over here and see what y'all got to say about it before I pray you out. What's up, Mike Michelson? Welcome to the live. Kimberly Witcher. Miss Lady K Love switched it to over here. Oh, okay. Thank you, my love. Yes, please. Let me do the banner. You guys, I could really appreciate your support. Yes, I could. Thank you for those of you who have contributed to the show. You can cash at me at $FOADOS TV or PayPal. The proceeds are used to help me educate the masses. You know, all these little fancy things I can now do to really zhuzh up my show. Your donation dollars, large and small, aggregated dollars, have helped me to continue educating the masses and advocating for reparations. And I use a percentage of your proceeds go to the Equity Advocates PAC. Okay, that's a new addition. I'm going to take a percentage of your proceeds and put it into the Equity Advocates PAC, because we are going to be vetting candidates all throughout the country to replace the lames, which are mostly Black immigrants in the CBC and a lot of American descendants of chattel slavery. It's time for them to go. They're getting in the way of our reparations, and we've got to build an arsenal. We've got to fortify the Equity Advocates PAC in order to stay ready so we ain't got to get ready. When we find the right candidates to run, we'll have Kofer, you know, a bank to pull from to run the ads and to give towards getting them elected. So please, your donations go a long way over here. I thank you. And also, like, share, subscribe on YouTube. The more people subscribe over there, it affects the algorithms, and then more people can get these messages. So don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and turn on your notifications in YouTube. Facebook puts me in jail a lot. They don't like the truth I'm espousing. Speaking of which, before I get into the rest of your comments, let me read the Fair Use Disclaimer Act. Lord knows they like to shut me down for that. So let me read it. Just give me a second. It won't take long. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976, allowance made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comments, news, reporting, teaching, scholarship, education, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Okay. Got that out the way so I can continue. So I'll keep that running so you guys can have a way to give if you feel so compelled. Let me go back to your comments. Miss Lady K Love, thank you for joining the live. Satra Del Reed 360. Greetings, Miss Nirvana. You are getting fancy with the technology. Yes, I am. I bought my green screen through Amazon, and now I'm able to just have these tropical vibes going. It does give me a peace mentality, and I do love the way it complements my wardrobe. So thanks for noticing. Rolando Moore, peace to you, family. Thank you for joining the live. Chrissy Bambusa, I saw that fabulous palace you bought with swimming pool and all in Mexico. Sis, it's fire. Yes, it is. Pretty Muslima. Thank you so much, sis, for joining the live. Okay, so happy Freedmen's Month. Be the Power taught me that. They want to put everybody's Black history when our history is rich in and of itself. Okay, this is about our month. Let's talk about our sheroes and heroes, of which I will be introducing throughout my shows, starting with my Sunday show. We're going to feature an American descendant of chattel slavery that's contributed every show for the rest of the month and maybe beyond that. So happy Freedmen's Month, family. Thank you, Pretty. She says she loves the background. Debonair One, I need that background in my life. Yes, yes, yes. This is how it feels in California. We all deserve the right to live here as we're being squeezed out. Preferably the AB 3121 California repair will close the egregious racial wealth gap down here for us once we get reparations for the people. We're still in that fight. Uh-oh. Moving on. Looks so peaceful. Yes. Gibson Eugene, welcome to the live. Thank you. Everybody loves the background. Yay. I love that bracelet. You know, I like to get pretty for y'all. I love pretty. It's so much fun to get dressed up for y'all. We're in a pandemic. There's nowhere to go and wear these lovely baubles. So thank you for showing your appreciation. Gerald Higginbotham. Oh my goodness. Thank you, family, for joining the live. Can you type in the chat if you're still here where people can find you on Sundays? Because I hear you get down on Sundays on YouTube. Oh, JoJo, my love. Welcome to the live. Another cold sister out of Dayton, Ohio, running for office. Well, she did run, and I pray she comes back. And I hope that we can help. We can be instrumental with the Equity Advocates PAC in getting her elected. Gerald says, preach. We must attack it from a nation-state perspective. Citizen slaves get no respect. Let me show that. Yes, indeed, Gerald. You're absolutely right. We will be working together. Demo rats. I just received all of my books from Dr. Nora Shelton. Not all, the half I ordered. And I'm super excited. I will be bringing some of that to you. So stay tuned for the Miseducation, not tonight. The Miseducation of ADOS in America with 3Ks book club series will be featuring some of Dr. Shelton, Dr. Norris Shelton, the father of the Reparationist movement. We will be featuring some of his books. I'm just so thrilled. That was a fire show. Woo, with the First Lady of Reparations, Miss Kathleen Parks. Yes. The era of their ways. Yes, Mike Michelson. Pretty Muslima, you did not vote for Biden, neither did me. I voted green, top of the ticket, and a blue Congress to protect the over 53% of us who rely on government assistance by design of institutional systemic racism. But I'm going to share with you in the end what I want us to do henceforth, okay? Prime Minister is on it from a nation perspective. Need your support for the American slave nation. Yes, you will have my support. Absolutely. And everyone, Gerald, if you could put in how they can reach you in the chat, that would be helpful for those who want to help you in your efforts. Once again, if you want to help me help them, you can email me at friendsofADOSTV@gmail. Right now, we're signing petitions over my Facebook space to upend this current HR 40 and demand that Sheila Jackson Lee put our edits in there. They want to be $12 million to study what doesn't even need to be studied, okay? Reparations, as First Lady of Reparations, Kathleen Parks says, reparations doesn't need not one more study. It needs to get done in the trillions over multi-generations. It took you over 400 years to drive us into the anchor of this country. It's going to take you at least that and then some to repair us. Don't commit to the time. You know it's gone. You know it's going to be about 180 minutes. Mike Michelson, you know you tickle me. It's going on 2 hours. Listen, I'm doing better than 3. Okay, there's improvement. Mike Michelson, don't you come over here bothering me. Okay, let's see here. I hope you learned a lot tonight. I really do. Each one teach one. Okay, keeps jumping on me. Gerald says, I'm telling him to let my people go. Pharaoh, let my people go. Yes, me too, Gerald. Miss Lady K Love says, I didn't vote for his lying behind too. Great for you. Most, you see, you guys are the woke ones. That's why I need you to share with the sleep ones. The sleep ones don't want to hear from me. They mad. They give a show shut down. Gerald says, we have to fight it strategically. America is a thinking person game, not an emotional one. You're so right about that, Gerald. You know I'm joining forces with you and Dr. Norris Shelton and First Lady of Reparations, Kathleen Parks. Bonita Evans Smith, I see you, love. I know that was crazy. More money while defunding. We're in the midst of George Floyd 846. He wants $300 million more for the race soldiers. I made that case already. Thank you, Bonita, for joining the live and sharing your comments. Pretty says, no, he doesn't. He is really a devil. This is spiritual warfare. That's real. Honey, is it ever? Oh, Lord. And we are out of time. We are at George Floyd 846. Gerald says, the American slave now has the right leadership that will address the issues. Amen to that. The American slave now has the right leadership that will address the issues. Jacaranda Williams, thank you for joining the live. Tell that truth, Sis Star. Yes, Sis Star. You know I am every time. Gibson says they steal everything. You know it. Jacaranda suggested the book, How the Asians Became White. I don't know. Is that an actual book, Jacaranda? I need that one because they already got how the Irish became white. We know the Jews were made white. Oh, yeah. Everybody but the American descendant of chattel slavery gets to be made white. Latinx, they need that book. Everyone but us. You're right, JoJo. Push, says Bonita. Did not vote. Well, now see, we need you to vote. But we need to weaponize the vote and socialize the suffering. I'm going to tell you what I mean by that at the end of the show. We need every vote, especially now. We don't vote, it's going to worsen our conditions. But there's a strategy I want to share with you about at the end of the show. Pure Vision, welcome to the live. Thank you. Jamar Carlisle, welcome to the live. Most of us who have jobs don't have health care because we're part-time. That's exactly what that lame $15 an hour does too. The $15 an hour gives these corporatists with 3Ks an opportunity to cut your hours. They're just going to cut your hours and hire more immigrants. That's all they're going to do. So it means nothing. That's why reparations directly into your account is the only way. There's no other way. We don't need more policies that they give with the left hand and give away with the right, while flattening blackness and flattening people of color and flattening minority and giving away all giving away all of our reparations on these class-based policies that don't fix race. Lineage absolutely matters, and the only way to close this gap is the trillions we are owed that Sheila Jackson Lee has literally cut out of the HR 40. She wants to make it an all Black Lives Matter in this country. Not that you can get anything from CARICOM, not that you can get anything from Africa, but she want to make all of them whole. And I've already shared the numbers of how exponentially better they're doing over here than us. And she wants them to be paid $12 million to, well, it was at first to study it into perpetuity. Now they have at least put a year on it, but they want us to pay them $12 million to study a repair we already know is owed in the trillions over multi-generations. They want us to pay them $12 million on top of the salaries they already earn, on top of the $25 million increase they got in the House recently, under the COVID relief, which included the federal spending budget, the federal spending bill under the entire omnibus umbrella. So your regular salaries from our tax dollars, $25 million pay increase, now $12 million more dollars to study reparations. Pure Vision, go back and rewatch the Biden civil rights leaders. There was another Indian named Vanita Gupta, woman on that Zoom speaking for the Black community. We've got some allies, very few. Okay. Jamar, it's white America's fault, all right. Yes, he sits up here and lies. Pure Vision, Angela, please, I just noticed something. You do know that meeting that Biden had with the so-called Black leaders had 2 Indian women in it. Kamala and Gupta go back and look, wow, why? To make sure we get nothing. They want you to continue to show up and to vote for identity and respectability politics. And oh, by the way, we'll give you symbolism. The EO will be for Harriet Tubman to be on a $20 bill that ain't worth nothing, that most Black folks don't even have to spare. That's what Biden wants to do for us. Kamala, who ain't even one of us, she's within a stone's throw of the presidency, and we've been over here over 400 years. Within one generation, she's within a stone's throw from East Indian Brahmin and slave holders on her daddy's side, slave owners, by his own admission. So as far as I'm concerned, we've never had a Black president until we have an Adocs president and an Adocs VP. Until then, I don't recognize all of this. She's in there caping for Asian Indians. That's who she's covering. That's who Biden just used and weaponized George Floyd at the top of the show to introduce the executive order for the Asian Americans, who I just showed you in the numbers is beating the brakes off of us economically. Because they, as I read in the article, get opportunities to come up while we still have the proverbial boot on our necks of institutional systemic racism. Jeremiah, welcome to the live. I've got 2 IRAs. That's wonderful. Jeremiah is 50,000 liquid. That's a beautiful, wonderful thing, fam. But what about the rest? So I thank you, because most people in your position, most Adocs in your position won't watch this show because I'm dragging Biden. I'm seeing a delay. Let me close down these tabs and see if that'll clear it up. Oh, I think that's because of my green screen. I don't think it has anything to do with that on second thought. Bonita Evans asks, why are most of us afraid to speak out against immigration? Because we've been told that it's the wrong thing to do. They want us to sleepwalk to the polls while carrying everyone on the tit and allowing our people to die in silence. They want to weaponize immigration against us to replace our vote. Since we're now waking up in the social media spaces, the revolution is being social mediaized to deny us the justice claim. So when you speak out against it and you put a gate up around your people, that's not popular. They come for you because they don't want you to be awakened to the fact that you are signing up for your own people's extinction, for your own people to be fourth class in this country. They want you to continue in this pattern of lesser of two evil while it's all evil, instead of weaponizing your vote and socializing your suffering. Your vote is your only commodity. We don't have the money. They've made sure of that by robbing us on every affront to ensure we didn't have the money to pay for our politics. But you saw the strength of the vote that delivered Biden-Harris was the Black vote. This is about the last election cycle that will matter. We may have one more in us if we play this right, per my recommendation. And I'm going to share with you about it towards the end of the show. Jeremiah says, because we've been conditioned to think we're to love everything and everyone to our own detriment. He's answering Bonita's question. Hey, Captain Long-Time. Okay. Maju, Simba, welcome to the live. Generational reparations is the only way. It's a must. You're right, Maju. Jermaine Woods, welcome to the live. Jonathan Perry III, welcome to the live. YVOC Info, I see you, fam. Welcome to the live. Teach, sis, you're on point. Thank you, Jonathan. Lawrence Jones, it's nepotism like other nations. Yeah, you're right. Like, yeah, everywhere. Trey X ADOS, one of my contributors to the show. Welcome to the live, family. Peace, Angela, and the rest of the family. YVOC Info, yes. Dr. Claude Anderson, yes. Keep him in your prayers, family. His health is failing. What a soldier. Black people, Trey X says, Black people still voted for Biden, even though his loyalty is for the immigrants. Thank you, Trey. He loves the background. Yay. It'll be changing. I got some of my favorites saved now that I know what I'm doing. Nikki Williams, welcome to the live, my love. Oh, Biden is full of ish. Why isn't he talking about how hard we worked? So you get it, right? You see the trick bag. You see him caping and riding hard for immigrants to replace our vote, to make us fourth-class citizens in the country our ancestors built with their lives, and to deny us our justice claim. As Dr. Claude Anderson said, we were once second, now we're third. Imagine fourth place. Do you think you're going to get anything from the immigrant oppressors? Do you think they're going to give you reparations when he fills up the whole entire government with immigrants? Keeps jumping, y'all. Sorry. Okay. Miss Lady K Love, I love that show. Oh, I think you're talking about the one with the First Lady of Reparations. Yes, wasn't it fire? First Lady Kathleen Parks was everything. She was such a jewel. It's so wonderful to know what undergirds our political education here. It just, that was one of my favorite shows to do. It felt like coming home to talk with Dr. Norris Shelton. And yes, oh my God. Let me stop luxuriating. That was one of my faves. Lawrence, thank you for joining the live. They have infrastructure and their business associations, churches, and delegates lobby and speak for them. Because why? they've got money. While certain folks say we don't have the money for a super PAC. They've got money. That's why they've got executive orders rolling out in the first 2 weeks, and we're still sitting here looking stupefied, 87% of us showing up to vote for this nonsense, while our people are still the anchor of this country with no end in sight. It didn't take him more than 2 weeks to fix everybody else, to make transgenders equivalent to our young daughters, nieces. He didn't have no problem making them equal under the law, but he can't make us equal in terms of our reparations. You heard him. I'll play it again as I close out the show. Trey X says, I didn't vote for Biden either. Green Party top of the ticket. I got a solution for that, family. We got to go hard in the paint, the next one. And I'm riding it all the way. I'm riding it all the way because we really need to do something dramatic or we are finished. We're practically there. We're on life support. We're at George Floyd 846. Miss Lady K Love. No, a lot of people told people about Joe Biden. Well, apparently it didn't land. Apparently the corporate news network, the mainstream media, corporate with 3 Ks, instill greater fear in a re-election of Donald Trump and a blue Congress than they did a trifecta. We in the Reparations movement were trying to sound the alarm, but y'all decided, 87% of you, not my conscious woke folks, decided replacing a racist in office for 4 years who's got bad table manners, no record against us, was better in terms of replacing him with racists in office for a combined 65 years with atrocious records against the American descendant of chattel slavery. It wasn't like that was lost on folks and they still voted for this. No, they didn't listen, Miss Lady K Love. Nope. Now they quiet or want to call me a hater because I'm exposing the truth over here. Miss Lady K Love says, I work in health insurance and one company only gives their employees basic insurance. I mean, it's crazy. And then they want you to pay for your insurance. Most of these corporations are getting away with that. That's why we're dying disproportionately from COVID. No health insurance. And when we do, it's inferior. Maurice Carlisle, welcome to the live if I didn't welcome you. Miss Lady K Love says, I talked to one employee and asked her, why do you all take that policy? Because we are baffled by that policy. And she was Black. That may have been all she could afford. A lot of people do not have insurance or their insurance deductibles are out of pocket, and out of pockets are expensive. So imagine taking that out of your paycheck. When I've already showed you, we don't get paid commensurate with the rest of the immigrants and the white folks. I told you I was going to cost me $14,000 under Obamacare. So our people are struggling. Oh, honey. Yes, Miss Lady K Love, struggle ain't the word. We're at George Floyd 846. But then how much is your salary if you have 2 IRAs that most ADOS cannot afford? To Jeremiah. I think that's who said he's got 2 IRAs. That's what I mean. At least he's over here getting the education. But do you know how many of him that are just like him that won't even watch these kinds of shows? They have bought into this white oppressive narrative because of their salaries that they've got economic inclusion while many of them have no wealth to leave their families. That's the part they won't tell you. You may have an income, but it doesn't mean you have wealth. You especially don't have the wealth that you were owed. I'm working on getting each of us $151 million apiece. That's my number. Well, that's a 6.2 quadrillion. I don't know what my number equates to. I'm not finished adding it up. But many mayors throughout this country say we're owed about $151 million apiece. I don't know how their 6.2 quadrillion was derived, though. But in the black tax that I went over with you guys, Sean D. Rochester puts all the line items as to how he got to his number. Just know that 500,000 plus a piece is what I'm working on. Let's see here. But then how much is, okay, Miss Lady K Love says, and $15 is not a whole lot either by the time you take out taxes and health insurance, etc. Yeah, $15 an hour is nothing compared to what we're owed. Thank you for your prayers for Dr. Claude Anderson. Marie says that whole stimulus package is a joke. It is a joke. It is a joke. And now that they delivered Georgia, he's dialing back on the little measly 2,000. It's now going to be 1,400 to make for a combined 2,000, while folks are losing everything. I love my wife, 0007. Welcome to the live, my love. There is money for a super PAC. Just do not donate to them. Well, Equity Advocates PAC. Let me type it. We're the original super PAC. Okay, we were the Friends of ADOS PAC before we were dragged, and now I've shared on my Facebook how she's over there saying we need money for our politics. We were saying this in 2019 before the pandemic. Now all of a sudden you want to talk about me roasting you for now wanting to charge adults, seniors, teens, and the chapters that's been financed by the money from our incomes, not your TV show, not your YouTube channel. You said that those proceeds are for your bills, not for the movement we founded. Now you want to charge them to do politics in a pandemic, what they didn't have, according to you and Antonio Moore, in 2019 when we founded the Friends of ADOS Super PAC, which is now the Equity Advocates PAC, to build infrastructure within the movement so that we can get our candidates, full-chested reparationists, elected at every level of government. But now in a pandemic, we miraculously have the money. Here's the site where you should put all your dollars in, whatever extra you can spare. Aggregated dollars, if each of us gave $1, we'd be at 40 million, okay? So my thing is, and it's always been, I've never left my square. Aggregated dollars gets our full-chested reparationists elected so we can get this done. It's not going to get done with these lames in office currently who don't even want it. Or they want to pass a toothless HR 40 bill with no money tied to it. And then what little money they do decide to include, they want to share it with everybody. When we are the reparations for the immigrants in this country. They got over here predominantly after the 65 Immigration Act. And as I read to you from the Color of Wealth LA 2000 to 2014, how much more significantly better they're doing than us. And as you saw, it's not an education thing. Because education doesn't close this egregious racial wealth gap. Only reparations will. Specifically for American descendants of chattel slavery. We are stuck with AOC in the Bronx. That's a crying shame. She's got her people in mind while denying black, then claiming Jewish, then playing Afro-Latina to demand reparations for COVID relief for her people. Coffee Brown 2, welcome to the live. It looks like I'm just about done. Keep exposing the truth, Angela. You know it. Shanna Ward, welcome to the live, my love. Here's lying behind. I love my wife, 0007. I do remember, Angela. My wife and I have seen what they were saying about you. Oh, yeah, still. Still trying to make me out to be the grifter they're appearing to be now. Connect the dots. Look all through the archives. I got a show coming that's going to be a fire show talking about us, the founders of this movement, and all of the things we've done. I want you to ask YC and Tone to compare what they've done to what we've done. Wait for the show, and then you can run it to them and say, let's compare notes. Let's see who has actually been moving. The proof is in the pudding. I've asked the chapter leaders to cough it up all over the country. The Assembly, which is now NAASD, the National Assembly for American Slavery Descendants. Oh yeah, I'm gonna bring receipts and show you for Black History Month who gets credit right now. I'm giving them their roses right now. Because we're the ones still working as they're continuing to throw chairs over in Twitter. Like I don't have eyes over there and people aren't sharing with me every step of the way the nonsense that's still going on. You are not a grifter at all. They are. Thank you. I love my wife 0007 for that acknowledgement. Oh yeah, I'm going to bring the receipts on a future show. So with that being said, family, before I play us out with Dr. Claude Anderson and Biden, I want to share with you the strategy I intend to invoke henceforth. And it's not unakin to what Dr. Charles Morris, pastor of Abyssinian Church, recommended after delivering Theodore Roosevelt, and he wrongfully and dishonorably discharged 167 of our Buffalo soldiers. Dr. Charles Morris said, "You shot us when our guns were empty, and we're going to return the same by delivering a blue top of the ticket and a red Congress to protect the Black South." Okay, that is when we were Republicans, predominantly. We have been voting blue no matter damn who since around FDR. Okay, and it's a nightmare where we are as the anchor of the country. I am recommending we weaponize the vote and socialize this suffering by delivering a red top henceforth and a blue Congress to protect the over 43%, over 53% of American descendants of chattel slavery who rely on government assistance by design of institutional systemic racism. None of this happens until we do that as a block. That's the only way a trifecta will ever do a damn thing for the very people whose ancestors built this country and all the wealth they eat off that table that we are the legs of. From now on, red top, blue Congress until we can replace the lames. It will gridlock government. Nothing can get done. And we need to drive that all the way to reparations until they hear us, until they hear the ancestors crying from the graves. So with that being said, let me play this, and then I'll pray us out. Oh, I gotta turn on the Bluetooth.
In the next 10 to 12 years, approximately 8 to 6 million Hispanics coming into the United States and 41 million Asians. You have been the majority minority for 400 years in this country. You have been the number 2 population for 400 years. You're going to get kicked out of being number 2. You're going to go down and become number 4. Now, common sense, even a third grade education would tell you, if you didn't get anything when you were number 2, you all jumped ahead of me, but anyway, you can guess what you're going to get. You become number 4.
Vice President Biden, do you support reparations?
Well, I mean,
since I haven't spoken on this, got a chance. Number one, the reason we're the country we are is because of immigration. We've been able to cherry pick the best from every single continent. The people who come here have determination, resilience. They are ready to stand up and work like the devil. We have 24 out of 100 children in our school today is Hispanic. The idea that we are going to walk away and not provide every opportunity for them is that not only stupid and immoral, but is bad for America. They are the future of America, and we should invest in them. Everybody will benefit from it, every single American, and you should get used to it. This is a nation of immigrants. That's who we are. That's why we're who we are. That's what makes us different, and we should invest in it.
Thank you.
With that being said, family, the light of God surrounds us, the love of God enfolds us, the power of God protects us, and the presence of God watches over us. Wherever Adocs and its allies are, God truly is, because, family, you are the face of God. You are the voice of God. You are the body temple of the Spirit of the living God. Until Sunday, family, 5 o'clock Pacific, 7 o'clock Central, and 8 o'clock Eastern, you go out here in these streets and you show the world who you really are. And you make it a beautiful, God-inspired rest of your evening and weekend until Sunday. Know that, if no one has told you today, that Angela Nirvana loves you black. I love you so strong. Peace, family.